Ward Bond may have appeared in over 200 films and TV shows throughout his decade-spanning career, but he's remembered most for being the star of NBC's hit Western TV series Wagon Train. Another legendary Western star of note was the one and only John Wayne, and Wayne and Bond were close friends. The two bonded at the beginning of their careers while they were still up-and-coming hotshots trying to find their way, but they enjoyed a close relationship for another good reason. While attending the University of Southern California together, they played football. They also were both given their first big breakthrough roles in John Ford's 1929 film Salute, not long after wrapping up their time at USC. Over the years, these two men appeared in more than 20 films together. When Ward Bond passed away after having a heart attack, he ended up leaving his old friend John Wayne a rather strange gift in his will. Keep watching to see what it was. Wayne and Bond didn't immediately hit it off. Even though they'd once played together back in college, once in Tinseltown, John Wayne and Ward Bond didn't click right off the bat. While on the set of Salute, Wayne became peeved with the Benkelman, Nebraska native after he showed up late and generally treated everyone around him with disrespect. John Ford, however, saw potential in the two working together. He could tell that given the right circumstances, they would mesh well and deliver truly compelling on-screen chemistry. So Ford decided to have them room together. Wayne later said that he and Bond bonded over cheap corn whiskey and a few, as he put it, nocturnal escapades. After that, they became close personal friends, and that friendship lasted over 3 decades until Ward's death in 1960. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. And stick around for more about Ward Bond and John Wayne. Their friendship survived an accidental shooting. Bond and Wayne's friendship was impenetrable. It's not every day people make friends that stick around when the going gets rough. Their friendship even managed to survive the time John accidentally shot his buddy Ward in the backside during a hunting trip. That episode ended up becoming a story they would later joke about for the remainder of Bond's life. After he died, Bond still had one last joke to tell apparently, because he ended up leaving the very gun that the Duke had shot him with in his will. That's right, he wasn't about to let Wayne forget about that little accident even after death. Wayne and Bond were both staunchly conservative. Bond was noted for his conservative political activism. John Wayne was also well known for his conservative political views. Obviously, this was something the two stars continued to bond in over their adult years, but apparently even Wayne thought Bond took things a little too far sometimes. He would tease Bond by saying he must have been on another one of his anti-communist kicks again whenever he would get all worked up over the topic. During the 1940s, Bond was a proud member of a conservative group known as the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals. The organization's major focus was opposing the communists and their influence in the film industry. In 1960, Bond campaigned for Republican nominee Richard Nixon's presidential run. He died only 3 days before John F. Kennedy won. Wayne became a conservative Republican icon, and just like Bond, he was vehemently anti-communist. Unlike Bond, however, he occasionally voted for Democrats. For instance, he voted for Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the 1936 election and admired his successor, Democrat Harry Truman. In 1944, Wayne was instrumental in creating the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideal, which, as we noted, Bond ended up becoming a member of. Wayne was also a vocal supporter of the House Un-American Activities Committee, an investigative committee of the U.S. House of Representatives that investigated alleged disloyalty and individuals suspected of having fascist or communist ties. John Wayne made an appearance on Wagon Train. By the 1960s, Wayne was arguably the biggest film star in the world. He had little need to do TV roles at that point, but he still did on occasion just for kicks. One notable example was when he appeared on I Love Lucy for an episode aptly titled Lucy and John Wayne. 10 years later, he made a cameo in an episode of the Beverly Hillbillies. For that spot, the Duke famously asked that his pay be made in the form of a bottle of Jack Daniels. Several years after, he showed up on TV once again in an episode of Maude. Most of the time, Wayne would make appearances on television playing himself, but there was one rare moment when he took on an actual TV acting role, although he did so without receiving proper credit. Since he was such good friends with Ward Bond and John Ford, he eventually decided to make an appearance on Wagon Train to show his buddies a little support. On top of that, he was also a huge fan of Wagon Master, the film that Wagon Train was based on. The episode's plot dealt largely with Major Seth Adams' Civil War background and how he was promoted to the rank of Major. Near the end of the episode, Major Seth Adams met General William Tecumseh Sherman after the Battle of Shiloh. While you can barely make out Wayne's face since he was sporting a beard and Union Army uniform, you can distinctly make out his voice. Wayne played the historical figure to pay his friends Bond and Ford another favor. Instead of being credited with his real name, he was listed under the pseudonym Michael Morris. Interestingly, Wayne played Sherman once again 2 years later in the hit film How the West Was Won. Wagon Train wasn't the only secret cameo Wayne did. In 1977, his voice could be heard in Star Wars, although this time around it wasn't as recognizable. Wayne played an informant named Garindon, who ended up ratting out the rebel heroes to the Imperial troops in the first act of the film. Garindon was seen wearing a long black hooded robe with a pair of goggles. The character, who was obviously an alien, sported an elephant-like trunk and spoke into a communication device with a shrill, squeaky voice. An archival audio recording of John Wayne was manipulated to produce Garindon's voice. Wayne made sure he made it to Bond's funeral. Bond suffered a massive fatal heart attack November 5, 1960, while he and his wife were staying at a hotel in Dallas, Texas. Although he was immediately rushed to the hospital, there was no saving him. He was 57. Bond's body was cremated and his ashes were dispersed in the ocean. John Wayne gave the eulogy at his friend's funeral at sea ceremony. He was quoted as saying that he and Bond were the closest of friends from school right on through. Wayne and Ford's deaths. Even though he had enrolled in an experimental cancer vaccine program in an attempt to fight off the disease, Wayne ended up dying of stomach cancer at the UCLA Medical Center on June 11, 1979. His body was buried at the Pacific View Memorial Park Cemetery in Corona del Mar, California. Fittingly, Wayne requested his tombstone read "Feo, fuerte y formal," a Spanish phrase that Wayne described as essentially meaning ugly, strong, and dignified. For nearly 2 decades, his grave was unmarked, so fans wouldn't flock to it as a pilgrimage site. But in 1999, it was finally marked with his name and one of his favorite quotes. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know Ward Bond and John Wayne were such close friends? Let us know in the comment section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.